Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2013 movie named Homefront starring Jason Statham. Keep alert, spoilers incoming. The movie opens with a gang of bikers named Outcasts approaching one of their clubs. Besides, the DA is tracking them, but they proceed to move inside where they have a methamphetamine laboratory. The gang is led by Danny T, who approaches one of them named Phil, broker organizing for the transportation of their drugs. They discuss on which means to use with Danny's son named Jojo. Shockingly, outside, the DA raids the place and move inside to start arresting the gangsters. The DA chief in command asks for a status update on his undercover agent, who turns out to be Phil Broker. Danny realizes that Phil is a snitch and run away with his son. Phil carries one injured agent, but upon moving outside, the place explodes. Danny flees with a car and Phil gets a bike to pursue them, and shortly Danny meet a police roadblock, hence turning around. They head face to face with Phil, who is on a bike, but Phil suddenly slides to leave the bike and shoot at it, exploding the car. Phil moves to the car to arrest Danny and shoot Jojo in the leg so that he drops his gun. Other agents arrive and order Jojo to get down, but he intentionally gets himself killed. Phil, however, feels sad, but Danny blames him for the death of his son. Phil leaves the place heartbroken, and it is learned that after serving in different departments and closing his last case, Phil resigned from the force. 2 years later, the scene jumps to a school where Maddie, daughter to Phil, is playing alone. Shortly, she gets approached by Teddy Klum, who starts to bully her. He pushes her down, but she warns him twice before hitting him down, breaking his nose. Phil moved to a small Louisiana town where Maddie's deceased mother grew up, and while having some woodwork with his friend named Tito, he receives a call from Maddie's school. He drives immediately to go attend to the call, and upon reaching, he finds Teddy being attended on by a nurse. In the principal's office, Teddy's parents are requesting for justice, but Phil gets approached by a teacher named Susan Hatch. Shortly, Teddy's mom named Cassie Bodine tries to confront Phil but gets taken away by the sheriff. Phil meets Maddie and asks her what happened, and she explains, but Phil blames himself for training her self-defense. Phil and Susan get a moment together, and it is revealed that Maddie's mother had passed on not long ago, and Phil relocated to Louisiana because Maddie was interested in horse riding. Upon moving outside, Cassie sends her husband Jimmy to attack Phil to avenge on Teddy's behalf. Jimmy confronts Phil, but Phil surprisingly takes him down, humiliating him further in front of his family. The sheriff intervenes to separate the fight and afterwards confirm to Phil that he is not in any trouble. He questions him on how he managed to put Jimmy down, but Phil tries to avoid his questioning by telling him that no more troubles will happen again. He moves away to meet Maddie, who inform him that the teachers witnessed everything. Cassie leaves with a scary face, and on their way she starts to insult Jimmy, calling him names. Jimmy defends himself that he lost his balance, but Cassie continues with the insults. She says that she will take the issue to her brother to handle Phil, but Jimmy tries to warn her to keep the issue within their family. We get introduced to some gangsters playing music while smoking drugs. Shortly, they get intervened by another drug sociopath named Gator, who orders them to turn off the music and send the 17-year-old girl away. He hits one of them and warns them not to cook meth again, despite telling him that they don't distribute it, it's for their own consumption. He forces them all to vacate the place, informing them that he would burn them if he ever finds them again. Back home, Phil praises Maddie's fighting skills and informs her that he is proud she defended herself. She asks him if he was scared before teasing him about his thoughts on Susan, the teacher from her school. Gator drives back home and it is revealed he is Cassie's brother. She requests him to go put up a threat on Phil and Maddie and later asks for some drugs from him since she is an addict. The following day, Phil spends time with Maddie and later moved to school, where Phil requests Susan for some help in organizing Maddie's upcoming birthday. Susan requests him to go meet Teddy's parents and apologize to bring about peace on the fight that happened earlier. Phil drives to meet Jimmy at his workplace to apologize, and when Jimmy requests him to apologize to Teddy and Cassie too, he accepts. Being on good terms, he leaves, though on his way he makes a stop at a gas station to refill his car. Shortly, Gator's men arrive and start to provoke him, asking for the pump before he is done with the refill. One of them turns the pump off and they force him to pay even if he wasn't done with the refill. He ignores them and proceeds with the refilling, but the gang leader suddenly attacks him, bringing about a fight. He hits all the men one by one, dispatching them in a quick, surprising manner that they never expected. After the fight, he asks who sent them, but the leader tells him nobody, hence leaving. While at his meth laboratory, Gator receives the bad news though. On the other hand, Maddie asks Phil what happened to his hand, but he lies that he was working on something. Shortly the sheriff signals him to stop and requests him to move out for a talk. The sheriff informs him that they heard of an incident at a gas station though no one is pressing charges. The sheriff inquires if he is ex-military, but Phil refuses to disclose anything concerning his past, but the sheriff assures him that he got his attention. Gator has arrived at Phil's house though Phil and Maddie are leaving for horse riding. Gator moves on to pierce Phil's car tire, having noticed them leave with Maddie and unaware of his presence. He proceeds to move inside though Phil and Maddie are at Waters having some memories of Maddie's mother. Maddie feels emotional and reveal how she misses her mum sometimes, but Phil tries to comfort her. Inside, Gator picks one of Maddie's bunny dolls though they are returning. Gator moves to a case store where he comes across some files, and upon checking them he learns of Phil's past but shortly hears them returning. He takes the file with him and hide where he comes across Maddie's cat. At night, while at his woodworks, Maddie approaches him asking if he came across her cat and bunny doll. Phil promises to help her look for them though Gator is going through the files. He comes across Phil's past connection with the Outcasts and his undercover mission that led to JoJo's death. Phil notices his pierced car tire, and on moving ahead in search for the cat he come across the bunny doll cut and tied on a tree. At a certain club, Marie receives a call from Gator who invites her for a meeting and she promises to meet him in the morning. In the morning, Marie, who happens to be Gator's girlfriend and former biker who knew the Outcasts, arrives. Gator reveals all Phil's past secrets to her, even that he was the one behind JoJo's death. On the other hand, Phil approaches Jimmy and warns him to stay away from his house, thinking he was the one behind the damages. Gator plans on giving in Phil to Danny in exchange for permission to distribute his meth in Danny's territories. Marie warns him that the Outcasts can't be trusted, but Gator pushes her to meet Danny's lawyer and execute the deal. Phil gifts Maddie another doll in replacement for the damaged one, and they plan on calling her whole class for her birthday party. Marie meets with Danny's lawyer and provide him with the file containing Phil's past life. The lawyer takes it to Danny, who upon seeing Phil informs his lawyer to do whatever it takes to take Phil down. Phil and Maddie meet with Teddy and Cassie, and in the process of reconciliation Maddie invites Teddy to her birthday party. Later on, working with Tito, Phil learns that the rumor reached everyone about his fight with Jimmy. Phil informs him that someone broke into his house, but Tito tells him that it can't be Jimmy. Linking the fight to Cassie, Tito informs him about Gator, who disguises as a boat mechanic but cooks meth. It is revealed that the sheriff knows about it, but Gator somehow corrupts him. Tito tells him of the cafe where he can find Gator, but warns him to be careful while going after him. At the birthday party, most of the people turned up, and the day seems colorful, though on the other hand the Outcasts have come to meet Marie. Cyrus comes as the gang leader, and upon meeting Marie he asks for the whereabouts of Phil, revealing that they have been looking for him for a long time. Marie informs him of Gator's demands, but Cyrus doesn't agree to anything and forcefully tells her to inform him about Phil's whereabouts. The birthday party is done, and while the people leave, Maddie feels happy seeing her dad with Susan having a talk. At night, Gator visits Cassie to warn her to stay away from Phil, but Cassie asks for drugs from him. Gator rejects, and the two get heated as he tells her to clean herself and stop drugs while Teddy is listening to them. Phil contacts his old DA boss to dig for him some information on Gator, and he gets informed about Marie, who recently worked with Danny, and he requests for her photo. Phil moves to the cafe where Tito directed him, and upon entering, Tito shows him Gator. He goes to his table, but Gator begins by blaming him for hitting Jimmy and Maddie hitting Teddy. Phil warns him to stay silent on any information he knows about him. He reveals to him that it was a cowardly act moving to his place and pierce his car tire as well as destroying Maddie's doll. He warns him that the next person to step on his premises would be killed, but Gator denies all the accusations. Phil leaves, but upon moving out he receives Marie's photo and realizes she was the one with Gator. Phil moves to Gator's workplace, which he disguised as a boat mechanic shop, and starts to check things around. He starts to check the items around, and being a former DA agent he manages to find out that the different items used in cooking meth, as well as the processed meth. Phil then starts to electronically set a bomb trap that could lead to an explosion once the lights get turned on. While leaving he notices Maddie's cat, but while picking it one of Gator's men holds him at gunpoint, but he manages to put him down instantly. When the cat runs he goes to pursue it, but he gets hit by the man he encountered earlier at the gas station. They begin to torture him and mock him, hitting him and drowning him in revenge for what had happened earlier. They compliment on his daughter, saying that they would hunt her since no one is protecting her now. Furious Phil opens up a fight on the goons as he finds ways to untie himself. He dispatches them with a lot of ease and later managed to untie himself and hit the remaining goons, putting an end to the fight with kicking their leader. He leaves with the cat, though the bikers are also on their way. Maddie feels unhappy after learning that they are relocating, though Cyrus and his gang have reached Gator's place asking for Phil's location, and Gator promises to direct them. Gator feels unhappy because Marie brought the riders at his place but proceed to give them the directions. He informs them that he wouldn't be going with them because he doesn't want to be noticed involved. They move to the waters to head to Phil's home, though Tito has also arrived to help Phil with the horses. The gangsters have arrived at Phil's perimeters, though Tito hears strange sounds, but they proceed towards the house. On their way they hear a horse neigh and send one man to check out. While checking out the stable, Tito attacks the man and a fight breaks out between the two. The man hits Tito down, but when he moves to reach his gun, Tito stabs him with a garden fork. Phil is packing, but the gangsters have arrived near his house. Tito hoots multiple times to alert Phil, but he gets shot on the hand. Phil hears the shot, hence calling Maddie. With the gangsters surrounding the house, he takes Maddie downstairs and informs her to stay there not until when he comes back, and she looks for a hiding spot. Phil gets a gun and sets himself ready, though the gangsters are also hunting for them as well. Two men move to the main entrance, but upon opening the door Phil shoots one down and a fight breaks out in the house. Maddie gets noticed and flee to save herself and move towards the woods. Marie calls Gator to inform him that things have turned messy, though Phil is still engaging the gangsters. One of the goons pursues Maddie through the woods, but before he shoots her, Phil shoots him first and saves Maddie. Shortly Cyrus engages Phil and Maddie runs to the shores where she meets Marie. A fight breaks out between Cyrus and Phil, though Marie persuades Maddie to leave with her. The fight gets tense between the men, but Marie forces Maddie on board, with Phil getting the advantage in the fight and finally gets a win over Cyrus. Unfortunately, Maddie gets kidnapped by Marie and Phil watches them leave helplessly. The police has arrived at the scene and Phil reports to the sheriff. Shortly he notices Tito, who is injured, and calls for the paramedics. Suddenly they receive a call from Maddie, who describes Marie to Phil, and the police suggests to track Maddie's phone. Shortly Marie and Maddie reach Gator's place, and upon Maddie describing the place, Phil recognizes it and drives straight away to head there. Gator has arrived at the place inquiring what happened, but when Marie tells him that she came with Maddie, Gator gets angry. He blames her for bringing a witness to his premises and gets his gun to execute her. Shortly Cassie and Jimmy arrive at Gator's place asking him if he heard about the shootings. She informs him that Maddie has been reported missing and asks him if he is involved, but Gator denies everything, even seeing Maddie. Shortly Marie takes Maddie out, but Cassie hears her voice inside and moves to check out. Upon switching on the lights, she triggers Phil's trap, bringing about an explosion, destroying Gator's laboratory. Cassie tries to secure Maddie, but furious Gator goes to get Maddie in revenge. They get into a scuffle and Gator suddenly shoots Cassie in the stomach and leave with Maddie. While leaving, Phil arrives and start to pursue him on the highway. The chase continues, with Phil trying all possible means to save Maddie, but Gator drives faster and distances him. The police starts to block all the possible ways in order to stop Gator, but he manages to flee via a bridge where Phil tries to pass, but his car gets an accident and overturn. Gator eventually stops and moves out to go approach Phil, and the sheriff orders his men not to shoot because of Maddie's presence on the bridge. While he aims to shoot Phil, Maddie distracts him when she moves out, calling his father. He warns her to move back to the car, but Phil uses this distraction to move out of the car and hit Gator ruthlessly. He hits him multiple times before putting a gun on his head to finish him. He looks at Maddie and changes his heart, informing Gator that it's Maddie who saved him and spare him to go embrace Maddie. The paramedics attend to Cassie as Phil and Maddie leave the scene. Later on, Phil visits Danny in the prison to warn him that
I'll be waiting.
Bringing the movie to the end. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.